Dennis Hurley Centre Review of the Year 2021. This is part one of two presented by Raymond Perrier, the Director. A year ago it wasn't possible to have a face-to-face AGM, and so our review of the year was conducted through a series of videos involving staff members, volunteers, partners, NGO partners, religious leaders, members of our community, and of course, homeless people and refugees themselves. The people, though, who attended this year's face-to-face AGM were among the videos that were collected last year. And it was a delight to see people in the building for the first time in 2 years, able to reconnect with each other and to reflect on what's happened over the past year. So this is a report back on some of the key activities since our last virtual AGM. We've now been operating for 7 years, and those who've been following these presentations will know that I try to find a theme to guide the style of the presentation. So with 7 years, what would be a good theme? Well, I'm not sure 007 is quite appropriate for our work. If you think about the number 7, one of the images that comes to mind are the 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit. Though fortitude and wise counsel might be a bit tricky to build into a PowerPoint presentation. Of course, the 7 wonders of the world, maybe Durban means we are one of the wonders of Durban. Of course, there are the 7 dwarves, and I know among our management team we definitely have a happy and a doc, and also some bashfuls and grumpies. And older listeners may remember the 7 years of the 7-year itch. I'm not sure that that theme quite works for our work. So instead, I've decided to focus on this 7-branch candlestick, the menorah, which is described in the Jewish Testament and is given a very specific definition by the prophet. So at the AGM, we had this menorah standing in the room, and one by one, the candles of the menorah were lit. I understand that the menorah symbolizes 2 things: the 7 days of creation, with, of course, the Sabbath, the central candle, marking the day on which God rested, and also a notion of 6 areas of human wisdom, all of them tending towards the light of God in the center. So let's look at 6 areas of our work and what they tend towards. The first one I want to look at are our donors, because clearly without donors, nothing would be possible. So this is an opportunity to thank God for those who donate their treasure, their time, and their talents. And the amount of treasure, yet again, was very impressive. In 2021, we raised 5.2 million rand. That's about £250,000. And that was raised from a variety of different sources. As you'll see, the 2 most significant sources were South African individuals and overseas individuals, between them making up 57% of what we raised. Smaller amounts from corporates, from South African grant organisations. Faith organisations in Emmanuel Cathedral suffered greatly because of the closure of churches and the inability to raise funds. Venue hire was remarkably good given all the problems of COVID, and we also had a commendable source of income from interest. Not surprisingly, fundraising activities were almost negligible, again because of the restrictions of COVID. And though we get no cash from the government, we do have the advantage of government medicines which are donated for use in our clinic. It's hard to look at images of financial donations, but here is one, and a very important one, because it came from Caprisa, the world-renowned Durban-based organisation that looks at HIV and research into HIV and AIDS. What was particularly moving about this was that the 50,000 rands were donated not from the organisation, but from the staff members, and they voted specifically to make the donation to the Dennis Hurley Centre, a great vote of confidence from a very inspiring organisation. So thank you to the many generous donors, some known to us and many unknown to us. There were a few fundraising activities, particularly in the last couple of months. This was organised by one of our volunteers, Duncan Rice, who went on to win a runner-up award for the Barry Wood Award for Outstanding Service. Duncan runs a yoga group, and his yoga group organised 108 morning salutations as a sponsored activity to raise money for the Dennis Hurley Centre. And another ongoing fundraising activity is from the UK. This is a table laden with Indian goodies, savoury and sweet, which are prepared, in fact, by my mother, Mrs. Phil Perrier, who has been cooking and selling Indian food to her neighbours, to members of her church over the last 10 years, and indeed has raised more than R250,000 for the Dennis Hurley Centre. I noted the increase in source of income from interest, and that's because of the growth of our legacy programme. We encourage people to leave bequests to us in their wills, and that legacy programme was one started by the late Monsignor Paul Natal, one that he personally endorsed. It's just over a year since he passed away, and also just over a year since Archbishop Abel Gabuza died, and we were very moved to see that Abel Gabuza had in fact left some money to us in his will. It's not just donations of money which are important, but donations of food. That enables us to keep our costs low. And through the year, a number of families donated food for special occasions. Individuals came in with donations of ingredients, and we also had donations of food from supermarkets in the area. And people have also shared their talents. We didn't have many activities this year, but we did have a number of pop-up concerts outside. And Simtandile Mtolo, who played just before the AGM, was one of the musicians who shared their talents so that we could share music with everyone who comes to our building, including those waiting for breakfast and lunch. So at this stage, we invited Shirley Masajada, on behalf of all those who have been generous donors to the Dennis Hurley Centre, to light the first candle of the menorah. The second candle is for our faith partners. Like Hurley, we are a proudly interfaith organisation. So we have Catholic roots, a Christian perspective on the world, and work closely with partners across the faith communities. Ash Wednesday is coming up soon, and every year on Ash Wednesday, we offer ashes to any homeless person who wishes to partake of them. This is a particularly moving picture because it shows in black a Catholic seminarian who was working with us in Lent 2021, and in white, Stuart Talbot, one of our managers, who is also an Anglican lay minister. The two of them side by side, distributing ashes among the homeless. Visits to churches were limited again because of COVID, but I did get the opportunity to visit a few churches in person and to say thank you for the way in which they have supported us with volunteering, with donations, and with their prayers. Here a visit to Musgrave Methodist Church. And one of the ways in which we've worked with churches is to enable them to work together with each other and with us. We discovered a number of church feeding schemes wanted to continue but were reluctant to distribute food because of the risk to their often older volunteers. So we've had a system in place where churches make food, make sandwiches, and then send them down to the Dennis Hurley Centre, and we distribute them alongside the cooked lunch that we give out every day. A cluster of churches around Durban North on one day, around Musgrave on another day. And that contributed to the huge number of meals that we served over the last 12 months. 157,000 served in 2021. You'll see there the steady level of breakfast and lunches that were served in 2020, the erratic numbers, in 2019, the erratic numbers in 2020, the first year of COVID, and then in 2021, settling down to a steady level again, but with the addition of the sandwiches. Our faith partners include members of other faith traditions. We were able to reinstitute our annual interfaith iftar during Ramadan. And because COVID regulations required us to hold the event outside, we were able, while standing outside the building, to hear the adhan, the call to prayer, from the mosque next door, just as the sun was setting. And a wonderful interfaith opportunity was with the appointment of our new Catholic Archbishop, Mandla Dwara, and the new Anglican Bishop, Nkosinathi Ndwandwe, a chance for them to come together and meet religious leaders from across the spectrum, across Durban, and find out more about the ecumenical and interfaith traditions of Durban. A particularly Christian part of our faith work this year was centred around Holy Week. Paddy Carney, when at Diaconia, started the annual Good Friday procession. We took that idea and extended it to a series of Holy Week activities, but all of them virtual. So a modern form of ecumenical sharing with different churches sharing materials for worship, for prayer and for reflection for each of the days during Holy Week. And in a very Durban way on Easter Sunday with a paddle out into the Indian Ocean as the sun was rising to cast flowers on the ocean in honour of those who have died in the last year. So to recognise the contribution of our faith partners, we invited Ella Gandhi to light the second candle of the menorah. The third area focuses on our NGO and educational partners. We really do believe in working together and achieving much more when we do so. So that means if we have a fork, we need to find someone with a knife if we're really going to eat well. Just one example of many was our collaboration with Amnesty International, here working outside the building with homeless people in the queue and looking at and encouraging them to sign petition letters as part of World Human Rights Day. Another long-standing NGO partner has been the Alliance Française in both cultural and educational areas. And because the Alliance Française wants to teach young refugee children French, many of them are from French language families and they can take French as one of their matric subjects, they decided to offer free classes for refugee children at the Dennis Hurley Centre. St John's have been an invaluable NGO partner to us by offering us a huge amount of space in their basement, which has become an invaluable home for the more than 3,000 books that we keep on store as part of our Streetlit programme. And a big area of partnership has been with schools. Again, because of COVID, schools were unable to volunteer for quite a long time, but they're beginning to volunteer again. And here, a young lady from Fatima Dominican Convent School, and on the left, Sister Dominique, back volunteering in our kitchen once more. Other educational partners remain UKZN, who send us fourth-year students and recently qualified students in law, in music, in social work, and here occupational therapy students who are working with the children from our Dalton creche, teaching them how to use tablets. And we reconnected with DUT in this last year, and they're enabling us to provide some new services. So for the first time, we were able to offer a homeopathy clinic 1 day a week at the Dennis Hurley Centre, and we're hoping that next year we can also offer a chiropractic clinic. So in honour of the many NGO and educational partners, we invited Coral Vinson, who, as the founder of Amnesty International in Durban, and aged over 90, probably the most senior activist in the city, to light the third candle. That's the end of part one.